I'm really excited today. We have Eman. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name properly. Pulis, is that correct?
Eman Pulis.
Pulis. Okay.
It's fine.
Perfect. And Eman is the founder of Sigma, the Sigma Group, which is a fantastic organization. They're rock stars in the event industry. Really glad to have you here. Just kind of getting started, would you maybe take a minute or two just to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Sigma, just so they kind of understand where your perspective is coming from?
Absolutely. I've always been an events guy myself, based out of Malta. More recently, I moved to Asia because I strongly believe it is, as a continent, a superpower where so much is happening. So I packed and moved with my family to Asia. And we are dominant in a number of spaces. We organize events in gambling, that's online gambling. We organize events in emerging technology and events in medical technology. So three main pillars.
Okay, excellent. Now, what is it that led you to found Sigma? What were you doing before you created the organization?
Yeah, funnily enough, I was never in gambling or I was never in emerging tech, but I was always in events. I used to organize big events, big parties, which I soon got a little tired of that. Tired, not mentally, but tired physically from organizing all of that. And some of the greatest clients who came to my parties happened to be people in the gaming industry. So I said, hey, I'm going to start doing events targeting B2B, the online gambling industry. And the business just took off like wildfire ever since.
Absolutely. I was just researching you guys the other day, and you guys really have a big audience. It's really impressive. And especially, I mean, how long have you guys been around again? I mean, not too long.
Not that long. Our inaugural show was November 2014. So 6 years ago. This November would have been our second show.
Wow. And the fact that you built such a huge audience in that short of time it's amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. What are some big events that you have coming up?
We have all events for the time being. They have been moved to virtual this year because of COVID. And I must say that we have been able to reach some new audiences there. We also have pushed heavily into media. So that helped us a lot to propel our company forward post-COVID when face-to-face events resume. But what are our events? We have four main landmarks, and that is Q1, we have Sigma in Africa. Q2, we have Sigma in Asia. Q3, we have Sigma in the Americas. And finally, Q4, we have Sigma in Europe.
Okay, excellent. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, what goes on basically, I told you we have shows in gaming, that's Sigma. We have shows in emerging tech that includes blockchain, AI, big data, quantum computing, Internet of Things, fintech. So all of these subjects, hot topics in the industry, we have a show for that called the IBC. And starting next year, we decided to put both the gaming show Sigma and the IBC show on emerging tech co-hosted on the same dates under the same roof. And the cross-pollination between the two is phenomenal. I mean, we have so much companies from emerging tech who are extremely interested in tapping into the online gambling space because the numbers are really good there. So the opportunities are endless.
That's fantastic. Now, and I understand that you have an event coming up in November, just a few weeks. Is that the event you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right. So Sigma, the gaming show, AIBC, the emerging tech show, they're colliding under the same virtual floor plan this time around. And the show is taking place towards the end of November.
Fantastic. Now, who would be a perfect attendee for that event?
Yeah.
Who is it that has to be there?
Anyone who is involved in either policy making, in regulation, in licensing, in business, in marketing, in HR, in any of those verticals that I mentioned. So I mentioned them again. There's 7. Online gambling, then there's all the emerging tech, blockchain, AI, big data, quantum computing, Internet of Things, and fintech. So if you remotely touch one of those 7 pillars, you should be at the show and network with us. There's so much content. There's so much networking going on. We have a big floor plan with exhibitors lined up that you're guaranteed to make some interesting connections.
That's fantastic. And that's the 24th and the 25th of this month, correct?
That's right.
Perfect. And where's the best place for our audience to go sign up for that event?
Easy peasy. This one is on us. We're doing very well with the company, thank God. So we thought of using COVID as an opportunity to give back. And registration is free. This one is on us. All you have to do is go on sigma.world and register over there.
Fantastic. And now this will be obviously an online event. What platforms should the audience expect to see? What platforms are you using to adapt to this online environment?
Yeah, we have worked with a good supplier who, together with some custom software, we've managed to provide a big virtual floor plan. So you're going to be able to see all these custom stands that we're accustomed to see at the big shows, but we're going to see them virtually. So the opportunity for creative thinking, they have manifested themselves in this virtual floor plan. Then we also have a very interesting platform for panel discussions, for presentations, and for side discussions, as well as side business to take place. You guys really have to log in, register, and try out the platform, because I guarantee you, you're going to be networking with folks from all over the world.
That's fantastic. I will say that this push from physical, in-person events to online events has made it very possible to expand our networking, right? I mean, I can tell, at least this year, my networking has been a lot more globally focused than it ever has been before. Yeah. And I would say that's an advantage. There's obviously disadvantages, right? To not being able to do in-person events, but one advantage I've seen is, just being able to reach people that I just wouldn't reach them normally. Has that been kind of your experience as well?
Much. It has become much easier to network if you get used to the online experience. And I'll tell you one thing, I think COVID, at least in the industry where I work, has taught us a lesson, in the sense, listen, you do not need to fly to London for a 2-hour meeting. You can easily take that board meeting through Zoom. So it has taught us that. But it has also taught us that events like ours, they remain a very essential part of the business making process. So I think we're going to see a trend where executives will fly less when it's that, quarterly board meeting. So I think that is something that can be easily handled by Zoom. But then when it comes to conferences and expos like ours, where you fly to another country and you have 40, 50 meetings lined up, and the economies of scale remain there. So you're flying once and you're lining up 50 meetings. I think an opportunity like that you should revert to as soon as possible, because nothing quite beats face-to-face, no interaction.
It's very true. I agree. Now, would you say though that going forward, events will continue to have an online component, or do you feel that that'll be maybe only some?
Yeah, look, I can talk from our experience, and I'm gonna be as blunt as possible.
Sure, absolutely.
We love face-to-face, and nothing will ever replace the buzz that you get from an expo, where you're surrounded with, hundreds of people that you already know, that you already do business, and they're all there under the same roof. having a great time doing business with you.
Right.
On top of that, those hundreds of people that you already know from the industry, add another few thousand people that are potentially going to be your next client or your next colleague. How can you replicate that online? You can't.
Not yet. Certainly, yeah.
What you can do, however, is maximize on the hype that is created by the face-to-face expos, maximize on that hype and have something complementing your face-to-face happening virtually. So I'll give you an example. What we are doing is we're telling our clients, our exhibitors, our sponsors, listen, you paid us $5,000 for a booth last year, pay us $5,000 for a booth next year. On top of that booth space, we're going to give you another space virtually. All you need to make sure is there's one person on standby on a laptop. So if there's any traffic coming in, you'll be able to take it from outside of the country. So yes, I do see a future where both virtual and physical events coexist together.
Fantastic, fantastic. I remember seeing there was a market research firm. I want to say they're called Bizz. They did a poll. They did a poll of event organizers like Sigma, and I found that I think 93% of event organizers said that they plan on having an online component going forward at all events. I mean, it makes sense. But like you said, though, nothing can replace that buzz, right, from that atmosphere of being there in person. And
yeah. If nothing, it has, like, I'll be honest with you, at the beginning we were concerned, right? We thought we were going to struggle to win people's hearts back because they would get used to the new normal. How many times have we heard this? The new normal. But if there's one rhetoric that we have heard is people can't wait to reconvene at conferences, share that pint of beer and do business the way they're used to.
Absolutely. But until that happens, which I mean, it's obviously with COVID, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? We're seeing some places cases are back up on the rise, and some places they're down. But clearly COVID is still a concern. So as we're having to do these things virtually or in an online platform, how do we engage our audience? How do we get as close to that engagement level as possible in this current environment? What has been your experience, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. All event organizers, they're trying to do something virtually. I'm even sensing an element of virtual events fatigue out there. Because in the past, people simply chose 2-3 conferences to attend, and they simply flew to those. But because virtual conferences are easily accessible, you get to check them out, all of them, right? So I'm seeing a lot of people getting bored a bit about the virtual front. To your question, what can be done? I'll be honest with you, not much.
Not much,
no. What we have done is mitigate the absence of events with media. So we focused a lot more on providing content to educate rather than to help with business making. But one is not replacing the other. It's simply a matter of, this is what it is. Let's maximize the downtime to everyone's advantage.
Absolutely. I like your word choice there. You're mitigating the situation. It's not, hey, we need to pivot completely. It's we need to mitigate this while it's here. So what, as far as media goes, you want to talk a little bit more about that as far as what Sigma's done as media? I would love to hear about that.
Sure. So from an events company, thanks to COVID, I must say, we have become instantly an events and media company. So instead of letting people go, we went the other direction. We recruited a fleet of employees, very talented employees who are now
Fantastic.
morphing the company in a new direction on top of the events. So we have a strong portal. Again, allow me to repeat, sigma.world, that is currently available in 6 languages. Soon is going to be available in 10 languages. And we dish out some of the most interesting content related to those 7 verticals I was talking about.
Right.
So because the world is becoming increasingly global, I mean, if you're launching a tech product today, the chances are the entire world can be your client, right? So you want to target businesses across the world. If it's in Europe, if it's in the States, if it's in Latin America, if it's in Asia, if it's in Australia or Africa. And we wanted to have a news portal that reflects this trend.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. Let's say there's an AI company who's doing a new product for gaming. We'll be able to cover that subject. We'll be able to cover whatever the company is doing. And we'll be able to do that in 10 languages to make sure someone from Korea knows what they're doing. Someone from China knows what they're doing. Someone from Brazil knows what they're doing. The world is becoming increasingly local. Everything is shrinking, but the language barriers remain there. And that's something that is reflected in our new direction.
That's fantastic. I have noticed that. Obviously, a lot of countries are still doing business in English. A lot of business is done in English. Of course, us Americans, we tend to not learn other languages. We should probably get better at that.
Well,
as
look,
Americans.
this is extremely interesting. I believe as well, a lot of business is done in English, right? It's one of the most spoken languages in the world, if not the world, but there's so much more out there, you know? Japanese, one of the strongest economies in the world. China is the strongest economy in the world these days. When you talk about Latin America, different variations of the Spanish language, Portuguese for Brazil, these are all extremely interesting markets, and you're more likely to reach out to the right audience if you go local. That means if you go with the appropriate language tools. And when I say appropriate, it has to be the proper localized language. So if I want to target Peru, if I want to target Argentina, if I want to target Mexico, I can't just dish out Spanish, because the way Argentinians speak Spanish is very different from the way people in Peru speak Spanish. And those sensitivities make a huge difference. So this is the kind of direction we're embarking upon.
I like that. I like that. One of the, one of our partners here at BizzTalk, Rosie Vieira, she speaks Spanish and Portuguese, and but she was telling me just the other day how Brazilian Portuguese is very different from Portugal Portuguese.
Exactly.
It has to be correct, otherwise it's no good.
Yeah, you're missing the point. Exactly.
Yeah. And of course, it's even more so in Asia. Now, earlier you mentioned that you relocated to Asia because that's you feel that that's really where events are going to be growing really strongly. There's a plethora of languages in Asia that are being spoken regularly.
Look, let me give you the most obvious breakdown in numbers. When we talk Asia, we're talking 4.5 billion people.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? 7 billion is the total population. We're talking 4.5 billion is in one continent. So that's what we're talking about here.
Fantastic. Now, as far, obviously, with that 4.5 billion, there's a lot of places in Asia, a lot of growth. Where are you seeing the most growth in those 7 verticals? Where are you seeing the most growth, and where should other, I mean, I don't want to give advice to your competitors, but where should event organizers be looking? Where should they have their eyes right now?
It's fine. Look, we're working in those verticals, predominantly online gambling,
right,
and also the other 6 verticals, blockchain, AI. I believe there's huge potential in Southeast Asia. specifically in the Philippines, which I consider the capital of Southeast Asia.
Right.
Hundreds of millions of people in Southeast Asia do not have a bank account, so they're completely plugged off the current financial system, right? But they do have a smartphone. They do have a smartphone. So imagine all the technology coming out today is accessible from a phone, whether it's financial technology, being able to pay from your phone or accept money, blockchain technology, AI, gambling, you can play slots, you can gamble on sports through the phone. So all of a sudden you have this wave of younger generations that is accessible. And I believe Southeast Asia is very, very promising because of that fact.
Absolutely. The Philippines is interesting. I've heard more people talking about the Philippines recently. So there's definitely growth happening there. But really very recently, that growth has been very recent growth. And that's kind of what you're seeing as well.
And most importantly, because we work in online gambling, where are most gambling companies located? The ones targeting Asian players, they are located in the Philippines, because the Philippines have created a license to enable those companies who target offshore players to set up business legitimately. So the amount of business that goes on in Manila is unreal. I mean, I'll be honest with you, there's never a dull moment in Asia, right? There's so much going on in terms of regulation. But again, 4.5 billion people, the market share is huge.
It is. That's huge. 4.5 billion. In recent years, those economies are getting stronger. So there's a lot bigger of a customer base, a legitimate customer base in Asia than there has been in previous decades. What have you kind of seen in places like India? I mean, obviously we talked about the Philippines. India, traditionally hasn't been a global player in these kinds of things. It's not a market that most companies think about. But I'm seeing today companies, Amazon, Walmart, and other tech companies, they are starting to look to India. What has your experience there?
Absolutely relevant. And there's a number of dialects of official languages. Right. There's Hindi. I think it's predominantly in the north of India speaks Hindi, but those folks can also speak English. But there's another couple of languages that are spoken in the south of India, and those folks are more likely to speak just that language without speaking English. So once you start understanding the dynamics in India, and obviously the vast opportunities with over 1 billion people just there, I think the choice becomes easy whether you should focus on that market or not. If not for business, I think India is extremely interesting for developers. So, So today, most companies need proper software. They're tech companies, and that is where some offices are being relocated just to outsource their dev work to India, just because either it's too expensive back home, back in the States or back in Europe, or because they either cannot find talent or because it's too expensive. So for those reasons, there's a lot of companies relocating to India for dev work.
Absolutely. In fact, I've outsourced some of my own software development work to Indian developers, and they do fantastic work. It's sometimes we come across a small language barrier, but not much. They do great work. So I'm glad you brought that up.
They do, and they speak English fairly well. Most of them, especially in the north. So there's less barriers than other places.
Absolutely. I want to bring the conversation back to COVID for just our last few minutes here.
Sure.
What do you see happening in this next year as far as COVID? Are we going to see a lot in-person events come back strong, or are we going to see it come back in stages? What do you think?
I'm hoping for a V rebound. That is a fast rebound back to normality. It's anyone's guess how the vaccine will be distributed. I'm hoping, Pfizer just came out recently with a vaccine that is very, very successful. We're talking over 90% success rate. So I know there have been allocations in Europe and other states. So once this starts being rolled out, I believe the mood of governments, the mood of the people will improve drastically overnight.
Absolutely.
Right? And some business will struggle to bounce back, and others like ours, I think will find it fairly easy to go back to a sense of normality.
Absolutely. Do you feel that the success of in-person events is going to rely more on the attitudes of governments, or is it more the attitude of the audience, of the attendees and the exhibitors? What do you think?
Look, I know from our end, our exhibitors, our speakers, our delegates, they really want the events back. They miss them. They want them. So that doesn't worry me at all. I'm the one telling them, guys, calm down. We're going to be back soon.
I like that.
When it comes to governments, different continents, different countries, different moods. So I wouldn't be able to tell you, to be honest. I know that at the moment we're going through a phase of lockdown. That's because most governments want to be able to open up for the Christmas season.
Sure.
After Christmas, there's going to be the vaccine being rolled out. So I think the mood is going to be much better, to be honest.
That's fantastic. I would really love to see in-person events come back. And obviously, BizzTalk, we're an event organizer, but we do 100% online events. So I expect that online events will still happen. But I also liked what you said earlier about kind of online event fatigue or virtual event fatigue. A few of the guests that we've had on, and a few new people that I've met recently, kind of shared the same thoughts as both attendees and as exhibitors. There's just so many events. Everyone has an event, and it's, instead of attending, like you said, 3 or 4 events, they're attending 30, 40 events. And it's just
an overkill.
You get tired.
It's an overkill.
It's overkill. Positive side of that, everyone's growing their network really fast. Downside, we're not getting to know those people as well as we could if it was an in-person event, right?
That's right. That's right. And I think there's a lot of magic waiting to happen at the next in-person events, no? Because we've now made all these lists of new connections that we've built virtually. But for some business to be made, we still need to meet face-to-face, right? I know very few people that sign $1 million deals just by meeting someone on a Zoom call or over a virtual conference. A lot of business needs to be nurtured face-to-face. So there's been a lot of waiting, over a year now waiting, or soon a year waiting. Right. And I can't wait to see all of that, materialize at the face-to-face expos. That's
fantastic. Any other closing thoughts? We've got about 2 minutes left here. Anything else that you want to leave with the audience about Sigma, about what you're doing, or advice?
I'll talk a bit about those verticals, right? Again, we're in online gambling, blockchain, AI, big data, quantum computing, Internet of Things, as well as financial technology, fintech. If you're remotely involved in any of those verticals, please do reach out to me personally. You'll find my details easily accessible online. My name is Eman Pulis. I'm the founder and the CEO of Sigma Group. Or else please log on to www.sigma.world and do register for our next virtual summit happening in a couple of weeks. You'll be able to network with the entire 7 verticals we're talking about. And if you like what we've done virtually, then I look forward to meet you with arms wide open at our first post-COVID expo.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Iman, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. It's been great to hear from you and your perspective. And it's been refreshing because your perspective is very different than a lot of the folks that I've been talking to recently. So I really appreciate your honesty and just thank you.
It's a pleasure, and you guys are doing a great job. So it's an honor for me to be sharing those thoughts with you. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll have you back again sometime to talk about another event. So awesome. All right. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Eman. Have a good one.
You too. Ciao, ciao.